I think that the idea of punishing teams for not making the playoffs is your best is the best way to deal with not having pro rel. I think it's a great idea for having those teams who don't make the playoffs kind of have to go through the bottom of the gauntlet, almost like there is promotion relegation. Oh, speaking of the USL owners have agreed a super majority that pro rel is coming on the stipulation that the Division One Premier League, goes through in 2028. So if the Division One league starts, Premier League in 2028, there will be pro rel. Thoughts on that?
Well, they can position it as, yes, it will absolutely be pro rel. There are a lot of logistical things that will need to be decided to get that system in place. But I think we can get to that in a minute because this is a really big story. This is something that the USL has been talking about for the better part of a decade publicly from the highest levels at USL headquarters. Now we're looking at actually having it happen. This is something that fans have been excited about. People really think is the silver bullet to get more attention on the league, give it that extra push in terms of the growth. Certainly it'll be exciting for us if it comes to fruition as people who cover this sport and this competition to see pro rel, to see those games matter. But yeah, I hate to be the Debbie Downer, but there's a lot that goes along with pro rel for it to actually be a thing that moves the needle.
And this is a credit to Paul Tenorio of The Athletic, who thankfully broke this article before we hit record on tonight's episode. But yeah, it's one thing to say that we have voted with, crucially wording here, a supermajority. If it was unanimous, Paul would have likely said unanimous, or the league would have announced it as such. But it's very crucial that we now have a lot of kind of work to do between here and 2028. The league has to get the approval for their D1 status. They have to work out how the league's going to be structured, which teams are going to start in which division from here on out. But it's exciting, especially as someone who's covered the league since 2014, to have basically go from the conversations like John, you had mentioned for the better part of a decade to, okay, now it's been approved and we can actually start the hard work of let's actually write out a plan on paper to decide how is this going to work.
Something that doesn't really matter, but kind of does. They mentioned the TV deal being one of the big reasons why this was brought up, right? And I think one thing that was really interesting, we actually got an official number from Fox on the MLS final, which had always been kind of hidden. So between Deportes and the English Fox station, they got just a little bit more than the USL. And one thing that Paul Torino, oh my gosh, Tenorio, thank goodness gracious, always that he brought up that was really interesting was there's more to lose in England, which he kind of mentioned, which I thought was fascinating because it's something I really hadn't thought about. But when you're talking about how how much money there is in losing these, like going down a division, you don't really get that as much in the USL in the US because the TV money isn't as big, which is really the big money maker in the Premier League.
This is a thing I know I've brought up in the past when we've had these discussions. It is disastrous if you're a Premier League team with a Premier League wage structure and then you get sent down to the Championship. Yes, there is a jump between the Championship and League One, but it's small potatoes for the people who own pro sports teams. And the same thing applies to the revenue. The same thing applies to advertising. Just because your local hospital wants to put their name on your jersey because you're in the USL Championship, that doesn't really change in League One. And that won't change even if Pro Rel is a thing. There's almost an upside to the fact that this league is a little bit of small potatoes right now. Like, it makes it easier to make the bold decision now and then try to raise all the boats with the tide.
And I think crucially, setting this as 2028, you have the incoming World Cup happening next summer. or for 2026 that will generate a lot of interest in the sport within this country. But if you set it out at 2028, you can communicate to all of these clubs that say, hey, get your houses in order because this is when it's going to come. And also communicate to the fan bases to say there's going to be an expectation that by 2028, if you finish rock bottom of your league, there's a likelihood that you'll be going back down. But like we've mentioned previously, a lot of USL fans has been clamoring for Pro Rel for many years. So I do believe there's going to be that buy-in from the fan base moving forward.
Time for me to be the naysayer here and just bring up the thing that everybody else will say. When hashtag ProRel USA at Change US Soccer Forever please goes on Twitter X Blue Sky, and it's like, actually, this is not an open system, so therefore it is not ProRel. This is actually just a gimmick. Kinda. That's what people want. People want it to be an open system that anybody can join. And people are going to tell you that when you say, but the USL has ProRel, and they'll say, nah, gimmick. You had to buy your way into it anyway. It's fake. Dangling the carrot as that. I think that conversation is real and does have to happen. But hey, you know what? This is an amazing first step that we honestly, including me, never thought was actually going to happen.
I think to be Debbie Downer in a different direction, it's very much a confidence game at the moment of the USL is saying, we're going to be D1. The USL is saying, we're going to add ProRel with the expectation that it'll mean more ad money, more TV money, more interest from fans. What does that look like in 2028? Will there actually be an impact? Is CBS going to say, okay, we're going to up the contract 200% because you have made these changes? That isn't a sure thing. As much as we see the reaction online, that really isn't representative of the factors that drive attendance or drive fan interest overall. Like, we are seeing a subset of people who are highly passionate about soccer, highly knowledgeable about these systems, that the average family doesn't care about when they're going to try to watch something to get some entertainment on a Saturday night. So ProRel is fun. ProRel could be a real game changer. I don't think it is 100% guaranteed to be so.
And to, I guess, go Debbie Downer to, I guess, to complete the trifecta in the other direction is the kind of elephant in the room is MLS on like, how does MLS react to USL
Yes.
going about these changes? Because USL is very much kind of saying we're coming for MLS's crown, or at least trying to take away some part of the pie that MLS currently controls and for a long time has dominated within US soccer. Of MLS kind of would see USL as a threat to that to an extent. And it's going to be interesting to see how MLS kind of positions themselves, how they react to it, because 4 years is a long time. Because like 4 years ago, we had San Diego Loyal in this league, and now it's San Diego FC up in MLS, sadly. And where the MLS is in 2028, where USL is in 2028 is going to be rather tough to predict. So while it's exciting from this part, there is that kind of thought in the back of my head that MLS is going to do a lot of however much they can to muscle their way through this.
I think one thing that and this is kind of my last thoughts on the whole matter before we kind of move on, because believe it or not, we had more to the show planned besides just ProRel. So stick around if you actually want to hear some good USL chatter.
Whoa. We don't talk about games here, dude.
Fair point. I guess for me, what this is going to come down to is what else is the incentive that we aren't seeing, right? And again, Paul did a great job of outlining the facts as we know them, which is supermajority voted, not unanimous, and that a lot of teams, like we said in our USL Announces Division 1 podcast that we did, which if you didn't listen to that, you should listen to that. But we have talked to people in front offices in the USL, and a lot of the conversation was, why won't we ever vote for ProRel as a championship team if all we can do is get relegated, right? Like, that doesn't make sense. Like, there is no promotion aspect. Now, this is something that Paul McDonald mentioned before, where he was like, we're working on getting player or teams those parachute payments, even if they are minuscule compared to England or somewhere else. I think we also talked about the US Open Cup today. How does promotion money work? Do you get prize money for winning the league? Because right now, as far as I know, even if you win the USL Championship or League One, you don't get anything for winning the league. I think that is something that they will have to change, because if you have these established Division One teams and you get promoted and you don't have that little extra financial push from that promotion money that you would get for prize, then you're just going to come straight back down. And I think that's something they have to really think about. If we have any final thoughts and move on, it looks like
It
you're
is
thinking, John.
just crazy to see, like, here I am binging between 8 different US Open Cup games, and the USL is implementing promotion and relegation. Like, funny how it just kind of drops out of nowhere on a Tuesday night.
They knew we were recording tonight, so it was honestly very, very kind of them.
Yeah, shout out to the leakers at the league office who are looking out for us and us alone.
I think timing it with
Can I
the
keep
Open
on-
Cup, which is a celebration of Lower League soccer, especially in these early rounds, definitely sends a very specific message of what the goal of Pro Rel is.
Can I just blindly thank Nicholas Murray, even though I know he wasn't the leaker? Thanks,
We should
Nicholas.
always be thanking Nicholas Murray. Go read the interview
You
with
should really
Dennis
be reading the
Sanchez.
Rondo.
Go read everything he writes. It's all great.
Subscribe to
I
the
love the
Rondo.
Rondo. I love the Rondo. Also, the back four, which does not mean 4 topics, by the way, in case you didn't know.
I think I put too many graphics in and it got caught in people's spam filters because my open rate tanked. So it needs to be shorter next week.